Ahoy there!
My chute! It won't open!
Don't worry, I'm here to save you.
Thank you!
Up to 89% on the cost of your shipping with pirateship.com.
What?
Shall I take that packet?
Wait, where are you going?
To save you up to 89%. Pirateship.com will save you money on shipping. Savings vary depending on weight, dimension, season, and destination of the package.
Need storage solutions? With over 40 locations, Mini Used Storage has the space you need. Mini Used Storage offers various unit sizes, excellent customer service, and a clean environment. Rent a unit and receive up to $25 in free moving supplies and a free rental truck. Plus, your first month's rent is free. Visit miniusedstorage.com to find a location near you and claim your free first month's rent. miniusedstorage.com, your premier storage solution.
Welcome to this week's Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin, Bob Marks, along with Andy Cohen and his weekly Keep and Pace update. The Harness Racing Alumni Show is the #1 harness racing podcast in North America. We have sponsorships and advertising spots available. For more information, email rrtrotten@outlook.com or visit ustrots.com. The statements and opinions of our guests are their personal opinions and beliefs, and it does not necessarily represent the opinions of the Harness Racing Alumni Show or of its host.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
Returning as this week's guest is Dover Downs Alex Kraszewski. Alex, welcome back to the Harness Racing Alumni Show.
Freddie, Bob, Trey, thank you very much for the opportunity, guys. Always appreciate it.
Hey, Alex, our discussion today is going to be about the drag time between races. Can you give us a little history as to how this developed?
Sure, Freddie. Actually, we're going to go back. In the 80s, our president, Bob Quigley, of Garden State Park, as well as our general manager, Bob Bork, in an effort to raise more racing revenues, came up with an idea. We were racing live afternoon. It would be to import a race signal, whether it be Gulfstream Park, Belmont, and patrons would be able to wager on that. The neat thing was there were two separate pools. There was the pool of the betting at Garden State Park, say at Gulfstream, and at Gulfstream Park itself. Therefore, a patron would be able to choose the odds. There would be two separate odds at the racetrack, and it became a lot of fun. And then they thought, well, how about let's try full card simulcast, because at the time you could only wager at the racetrack you were at. This way, the idea of full card simulcasting, the patron would be able to bet on the Triple Crown or Gulfstream or Belmont or the Meadowlands. And that's when that came about. Obviously, we needed equipment. We needed a satellite up truck to uplink the signal, bounce it off the satellite for satellite time, and then come back down to a decoder. The telephone lines, the betting lines were dial-up telephone lines, so we would have 20 lines of that. So in order to have full card simulcast, we were able to commingle all those pools. So what you see in the odds boards were all across the country into one pool. And that's where the art of full card simulcasting came about.
Well, how much money does like Dover Downs get out of the pool? I mean, we know what the pools are for the Dover Downs itself, but for wagerings on other tracks, how much money comes in that way?
Well, I mean, it obviously it's hard to tell, because sometimes, like during the week, a couple racetracks canceled out, so we were able to gather the revenue from those canceled racetracks, which added to our handle. So it depends on race to race, and also, as we stated before, Patty Brigham's our director of racing. She also is able to adjust off time, and that way patrons are able to have a choice of what they want to play. Either we go above or below post time of a particular racetrack. The intent is to not have 2 or 3 racetracks go off at the same time. Therefore, a patron has a chance to choose whatever racetracks they want to bet without any kind of conflict.
And while this is going on, you also have thoroughbred races going off at the same time, not just harness racing, correct?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting concept. The fact that, Freddie, there are, I think at Bally's Dover, we have 15 different signals throughout the day. It doesn't mean that necessarily all the racetracks are going to be by themselves, but the point is to be able to allow a couple moments for the betting patrons to make their choice of what racetrack they want to play. The off times, sometimes we may go under a racetrack. In other words, post time at Northfield, off time is 8 o'clock. Instead of heading at the same time, we may go 5 minutes under them or a couple minutes over them, so that there's not a conflict. A patron can also not only bet us at Bally's Dover and Northfield. It gives them the freedom because, Freddie, it's a casino mentality out there where there's a race almost going off every 3 minutes. So you want to give the betting patron every ample possibility to bet whatever racetrack they want, whether it be Woodbine up in Canada or the Meadowlands or Bally's Dover. That way you have a choice as opposed to a racetrack going off simultaneously.
Now, while this is going on, is like Patty in contact with like the 15 other racetracks?
Well, not only Patty, but most of the mutual managers, they have access. They have a board in front of them that shows all the racetracks that are up. And you'll be able to tell at what time a racetrack is setting their post time. So therefore, there's the access of being able to adjust the off times. As I said, you might have Northfield Park, you might have the Meadowlands going off at 8 o'clock. And rather than us go off at 8 o'clock, adjust the off time to go 5 minutes under or maybe 5 minutes over that. That way there's not a conflict of 3 of us all going off at the same time and therefore losing that valuable revenue.
Now, Bob Marks has always thought that we should have our own channel and that we should have a director that basically coordinates all this. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, back in the day, in the 80s, Bob Bork had an idea. He wanted to have like a simulcast referee. That way, like a traffic cop directs traffic. That way, everybody, would have their own time as to avoid a conflict of going off at the same time. Unfortunately, the racetracks, a lot of them did not pick up on this process, Freddie and Bobby. It's up to the individual racetrack. But like I said, in order to generate more revenue and to adjust off time, it benefits the horsemen because there's going to be more money into the betting pools. Therefore, the percentages, the purses will have a bit of an increase. That's the point, to avoid conflict and allow a betting patron to choose whatever racetrack they want to bet without 2 or 3 going off at the same time. It's just traffic control, that's all.
Now, how much more of a positive impact does it have towards the pool?
Well, it does. Back in the day at Garden State Park in the 80s, when we wanted to be the last racetrack up on the simulcast network, and we would bet $100,000 on that last race. Then later on, when I was at Delaware Park, we had a horse that got caught in the gate for a turf race. There was a 5-minute delay, and we were adding $20,000 in added revenue each minute. So that's the point. The more we want to have more revenue. Obviously, it matriculates to higher purses, but it is added revenue as opposed to And the question is, full card simulcasting as opposed to on track. Well, in the 80s, you go to a racetrack, that's the only place that you could bet. Full card simulcast allows you to bet the Kentucky Derby, the Triple Crown, the Hamiltonian, all the other individual races, which we weren't able to do in the 80s before full card simulcasting.
Okay. Hey, Bob Marks, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Well, I think we've covered the situation very well.
Okay. And Alex, I'll ask you, do you have any last words to say before I close the show out?
Well, Freddie, one thing. Our track announcer, Jack Gallagher, just celebrated a birthday last week. He's now been announcing races at Harrington at Valley Dover for 42 years. So hats off to our track announcer, Jack Gallagher.
Well, happy birthday. Okay, with that, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Freddie, Bobby, I appreciate it.
Now, over to Andy.
Thanks, Freddie. I honestly don't know what I'm going to write about yet for next Monday in the Keeping Pace column at Pollock Report, but I wanted to jump in here and say congratulations to all of the Dan Patch winners, the humans, the horses, who will be honored this weekend at the Ushuaia event in Florida. So many worthy winners, so many good people getting the recognition they deserve. So I just wanted to get on the record with that. Back to you, Fred.
Thank you, Andy. The Harness Racing Alumni Show is the #1 harness racing podcast in North America and is listened to worldwide on multiple platforms, including Spreaker, iHeartRadio, USTrots.com, HarnessLink, Google Podcasts, and many others. To our audience, thanks for listening, and please join us again next week.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show